Hi, I'm Paul Behrens. I work as British Academy Global Professor working on rapid food transitions in a rapidly changing world, and I work at the Future of Food programme within the Oxford Martin School. I think the biggest challenge that we face in ensuring a sustainable and equitable agri-food system are the environmental impacts of the food system, but also the environmental impacts on the food system. So when we look across all of the different environmental harms in the world, the food system is the largest driver of most of them. It's the largest driver of land use change. It's the largest driver of deforestation. It's the largest driver of water scarcity, of water pollution, which can harm marine life. It's the largest driver of antimicrobial resistance, the largest driver of diseases that can spill over into humans. And it's also the second largest driver of climate change. So even if we decarbonize the entire energy system, the food system on its own is enough to push us beyond tipping points in the climate system. Current research on the impacts of climate change on food security is suggesting that we've underestimated how hard and how deep some of these impacts can go. And partly that's because it's been very difficult to estimate the impacts of extreme weather events on food systems. So we're thinking things like heat waves, droughts, floods, also the strange way in which the seasons are now progressing in fits and starts that can also affect food systems. And this is incredibly difficult to model. What research suggests now is that the chance of having much lower yields, so-called multi-breadbasket failures, goes up the closer we get to 1.5 and 2 degrees of global warming. So while scientists have been very accurate on the overall temperatures that we'll see, there's been this broad underestimation of how deep climate change can hit us. Climate change isn't only impacting the food systems in low and middle income countries. It's having a deep impact on high income countries like the UK already. We've seen over the last few years this big increase in the prices of food at the supermarket. Estimates suggest about a third of that has been driven by climate change. And when we look at other research across the literature, we find that that inflation effect, that increase in the cost of living, will continue on into the future and perhaps even get worse. And this is incredibly important for the poorest in society, because the poorest in society spend much more of their total budget on food compared to the high income. So this cost of living will hit them the hardest. The solution for addressing these environmental impacts on food systems and the environmental impacts these food systems have on climate, biodiversity, deforestation, and so much more, is what researchers call a great food transformation. We need to transform the food system in order to be healthy for the planet and healthy for the future. And this consists of mainly 3 pillars. The first pillar is dietary change. The second pillar is a reduction in food waste. And the third pillar is changes in production to more environmentally friendly food production. And the biggest opportunity of those 3 pillars in countries like the UK, high-income countries where we eat a lot of animal products, is dietary change. And the reason is we use so much land for animal products, and it's a very inefficient way to provide the food that we need. So if we look at the UK, about 75% of the total land of the UK is used for agriculture, and about 80% of that land is used for animals. So we'd save so much land through this dietary change. And by freeing up some of that land, we can better roll with the punches of climate change, with environmental damage. We can have better floodwater absorption. We can absorb the storm surges. And we can also have a more productive food system full of biodiversity and full of cleaner air and soils. Our research at the Oxford Martin School is looking at how we can have rapid food transitions in this rapidly changing world where climate is impacting the food system more and more. And to do that, we look into 3 main areas. We look into ways in which we can help farmers shift from one practice to another, allow them to engage in environmentally friendly practices. And that can include the changing of subsidies, which is a big driver of the current food system. We also look at the broad environmental benefits of such a shift. So what it means for green space near us, what it means for our air quality, for our water quality. And then finally, we're looking at different visions of that future. So will it be a future mostly of whole food, plant-based diets? Will it be a vision of novel foods, of cultured meats, some of the things that we read about in the news? What sort of visions are there for the future, and which ones seem most appealing to people? We have to be hopeful that we can change food systems for the better for people and for the planet. The impact of food systems today are so damaging for the environment, but also to our health. And so the food transformations that we need for the environment are exactly the food system transformations we need for our health. So typically we might eat only a handful of plants a week. Well, there's tens of thousands of plants that we could be eating every week. And so this is not a story of abstinence, of cutting one thing out and going to another. It's actually a story of exploration, of looking at delicious new meals and eating delicious new foods.